The house was too quiet for midnight. The clock on the wall ticked loudly, each second cutting through the silence like a knife. Daniel stood at the edge of the bed, his jaw tight, his eyes cold. A suitcase lay open before him. He grabbed shirts from the closet and folded them roughly, not caring if they wrinkled. The sound of the zipper opening and closing felt louder than it should have. Maya stood near the doorway, frozen. Her hands trembled at her sides. Her heart pounded so hard she thought she might faint. "Please, don't do this," she whispered. Daniel didn't answer at first. He kept packing. Socks. A jacket. His shaving kit. Every movement was sharp, controlled, like if he stopped he might explode. "I can't stay here," he finally said. His voice was calm. Too calm. Maya took a small step forward. "We can talk about this." He let out a short breath, almost a laugh, but there was no humor in it. "Talk?" he repeated. "You had years to talk." The words pierced her. Years. She felt them like a weight pressing down on her chest. Daniel stopped packing and slowly turned to face her. His eyes were red, not from anger alone, but from heartbreak. "Why didn't you tell me the truth?" he asked. The question filled the room. Maya opened her mouth, but no words came out at first. Her throat felt dry. Her stomach twisted with shame. She had imagined this moment before. She had feared it. But she never thought it would feel this unbearable. "I was scared," she said softly. Daniel shook his head. "Scared of what?" "Of me." She swallowed hard. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "My mother told me I had no choice." The words fell between them like broken glass. Daniel stared at her as if he didn't recognize her anymore. "So your mother decides what I deserve to know?" he asked. "No," she cried quickly. "It wasn't like that." But deep down she knew it was. He picked up a framed photo from the bedside table, a picture from their wedding day. They were smiling, holding hands, looking like two people who believed love could conquer anything. Daniel's fingers tightened around the frame. "Was any of it real?" he asked quietly. Maya's heart shattered. "It was all real," she said. "I love you." He closed his eyes for a moment as if trying to steady himself. "You don't build love on lies," he replied. That sentence broke something inside her. She rushed toward him and grabbed his arm. "We can fix this. I'll explain everything. Please don't leave." But he gently pulled away. "I needed a partner," he said. "Not secrets." He zipped the suitcase closed. The sharp sound echoed through the room. Maya's knees felt weak. She followed him down the hallway, her tears falling freely now. When he reached the front door he paused for just a second. She saw the hesitation, the pain, the battle inside him. But the hurt was stronger than the love in that moment. The door opened. Cold night air rushed in. "Daniel," she called, her voice breaking completely. He stepped outside. And then the door closed. The sound was final. Maya stood there, staring at the empty space where he had just been. The house felt different now. Bigger. Colder. Silent in a way that felt heavy and permanent. She slowly slid down against the wall, hugging her knees to her chest. One secret. One decision made out of fear. One lie she had told herself was harmless. Now her marriage was shattered. What was the truth she had hidden for years? And how did one lie grow powerful enough to destroy a love that once felt unbreakable? Before the silence, before the tears, there had been laughter. Maya had always believed in love. She grew up watching her mother struggle, but she still held on to hope. She believed that if two people truly cared for each other, they could survive anything. She was gentle by nature, the kind of woman who remembered birthdays, who cooked her husband's favorite meals, who put others before herself without even thinking. Family meant everything to her. Respect meant everything to her. And when she met Daniel, she thought she had found a man who believed in the same things. They first spoke at a small charity event in their neighborhood. Maya had volunteered to help serve food. She moved through the crowd with quiet confidence, greeting everyone with a warm smile. Daniel noticed her immediately. Not because she was loud or flashy, but because she wasn't. She listened when people spoke. She laughed softly. She treated the elderly guests with patience and kindness. When he finally gathered the courage to speak to her, the conversation felt easy, natural, like they had known each other for years. He admired how sincere she was. She admired how honest he was. Daniel was a simple man with strong values. He worked long hours and believed that hard work built character. But more than anything he valued truth. He often said that honesty was the only thing that could keep love alive. "Life will test us," he once told her during a long evening walk. "But as long as we never lie to each other, we'll be fine." Maya smiled at those words. She truly believed them. Their relationship grew slowly but deeply. They didn't rush. They talked about dreams, about building a home, about raising children, about growing old together. They didn't have much money in the beginning. Some months were tight. They counted every expense. But instead of fighting, they worked as a team. If Daniel came home tired, Maya would sit beside him and listen to his worries. If Maya felt overwhelmed, Daniel would hold her hand and remind her they were building something real. Those early struggles only made their bond stronger. When Daniel proposed, it wasn't in a grand way. There were no flashing lights or fancy restaurants. It was just the two of them in their small living room. He knelt down with nervous hands and said he didn't promise a perfect life, only an honest one. Maya said yes without hesitation. Their wedding day was filled with joy. Music echoed through the hall. Friends and family surrounded them with blessings and laughter. Maya wore a simple white dress, her eyes shining with hope. Daniel couldn't stop smiling. They looked like two people standing at the beginning of something beautiful. But even on that bright day, there was a quiet moment that would later mean more than Maya realized. Her mother pulled her aside before the ceremony. She adjusted Maya's veil carefully, her hands steady but her eyes serious. "Marriage is not just love," her mother said softly. "Love fades. Security doesn't." Maya frowned slightly. "Daniel isn't like that." Her mother gave her a knowing look. "All men are strong until life gets hard. Protect what's yours. At any cost." The words felt strange. But Maya pushed the discomfort aside. She told herself her mother was only being protective. After everything her mother had suffered in life, maybe she just feared losing stability again. So Maya walked down the aisle, focused only on Daniel. When they exchanged vows, they promised loyalty, trust, honesty. Daniel looked into her eyes and promised never to hide anything from her. And Maya promised the same. At that moment, she meant every word. She believed their love was different, stronger, built on truth. They began their life together with hope in their hearts and faith in each other. They didn't know then that fear, not love, would one day guide a single decision. And that one decision would test everything they had built. Maya loved her mother. She always had. Growing up, she watched her mother fight through pain that most people never saw. After Maya's father walked away, her mother was left alone. No money, no support, no one to lean on. She worked long hours cleaning houses and sewing clothes late at night just to keep food on the table. Maya remembered the nights the electricity was cut off. The quiet tears her mother tried to hide. The way she would say, "We'll be fine," even when things clearly weren't. Her mother had survived betrayal. And survival had changed her. To her, love was never enough. Love had once promised her safety, and then abandoned her. So she learned to depend on control instead. When Maya got married, her mother smiled. She attended every family dinner. She offered advice about cooking, saving money, and keeping peace in the home. At first it seemed harmless. But slowly her advice began to carry a different tone. "Don't tell Daniel everything," she would say casually while helping Maya wash dishes. "Men don't need to know every detail." Maya would laugh it off. "There's nothing to hide." Her mother would look at her carefully. "That's what I used to think." Those words stayed in Maya's mind longer than she admitted. Her mother often reminded her of the past. "I gave up my youth for you," she would say. "I worked myself sick so you could have a better life. Don't let your future depend on anyone." It wasn't said in anger. It was said in pain. And pain has a way of sounding convincing. Daniel noticed how often Maya checked her phone after speaking to her mother. He noticed how she sometimes hesitated before answering simple questions. "Is everything okay?" he would ask gently. "Yes," she would reply quickly. "Of course." And most of the time she believed it. But small changes began to appear. If Daniel made a financial decision, Maya would run it by her mother first. If Daniel wanted to invest in something or plan a big expense, her mother would question his judgment. "Make sure your name is protected," her mother would warn. "Make sure you have security." Security. The word came up often. One evening, Daniel suggested they combine their savings into one shared account to plan for the future. It made sense. They were building a life together. Maya agreed at first. But later that night her mother called. "Keep something separate," she advised firmly. "A woman should always have her own backup. Don't depend completely on a man." Maya felt caught between two worlds. Daniel believed in unity, in transparency. Her mother believed in protection, in preparation for betrayal. The first time Maya followed her mother's advice, it felt small. Daniel asked if she had transferred her full savings into their joint account. She hesitated. Then she said yes. It wasn't a big lie. She had only kept a small portion aside, just in case. She told herself it was harmless. But that night she couldn't sleep well. Daniel sensed something was off. He didn't accuse her. He didn't question her further. He simply trusted her. And that trust made her guilt heavier. Her mother continued planting quiet doubts. What if he changes? What if you can't give him what he wants? What if he decides he deserves more? Each question sounded like protection, but it felt like fear. Maya tried to balance both relationships. She loved her husband deeply. She admired his honesty. She respected his dreams. But she also felt responsible for her mother's emotional safety. Every time she disagreed with her mother, she saw hurt flash across her face. And guilt always won. The pressure built slowly like clouds gathering before a storm. Then one afternoon, Maya went to the doctor for a routine checkup. She expected nothing serious. But when the doctor spoke carefully and explained her medical condition, a condition that could make it very difficult for her to have children, the world seemed to tilt. Children. Daniel's biggest dream. Maya left the hospital with shaking hands. Fear wrapped around her heart. And instead of calling her husband first, she called her mother. As she waited for her mother to answer, her mind raced with one terrifying question. If Daniel knew the truth, would he stay? Maya sat on the edge of her mother's couch, her hands clasped tightly together. The doctor's words kept repeating in her mind. It may be very difficult for you to conceive naturally. Very difficult. Not impossible. But not certain either. The room felt small. Heavy. Her mother sat across from her, listening carefully as Maya explained everything through tears. I don't know what to do, Maya said, her voice shaking. Daniel wants children so badly. We've talked about it for years. Her mother's face hardened, not with anger, but with fear. You will not tell him, she said firmly. Maya looked up quickly. What? How can I not tell him? He's my husband. Her mother leaned forward. And men leave when their dreams are taken away. That's not Daniel, Maya whispered. Her mother gave her a tired look. That's what I thought about your father. The room fell silent. Pain from the past filled the space between them. Listen to me, her mother continued more softly. Doctors are wrong all the time. Stress can affect results. Maybe you'll have children. Maybe you won't. But if you tell him now, you give him a reason to doubt your future together. Maya's chest tightened. He deserves the truth. He deserves stability, her mother replied. Protect your marriage. Protect yourself. The word protect echoed in Maya's mind. Protect. That night, Daniel came home excited. He had passed a major project at work. He hugged her tightly and talked about celebrating. While they ate dinner, he spoke about the future. About buying a bigger house one day. About turning the second bedroom into a nursery. He even laughed and suggested baby names. Maya forced a smile. Her hands trembled under the table. When he noticed her silence, he asked gently, How did your doctor appointment go? Time seemed to freeze. This was it. The moment. She could tell him. She could explain everything. Cry in his arms. Face it together. But her mother's voice echoed in her head. Men leave when things get difficult. Her heart pounded. It was fine, she heard herself say. Just stress. Nothing serious. Daniel smiled with relief. Good. I was worried. He reached across the table and squeezed her hand. The warmth of his touch made her stomach twist with guilt. That was the first lie. It felt small. Simple. Just one sentence. She told herself she was buying time. That she would tell him later when she had more answers. When she felt stronger. But later never feels easier. Days turned into weeks. Daniel began talking more seriously about trying for a baby. He downloaded parenting articles. He joked about practicing how to hold a newborn. Each time, Maya felt like she was standing on the edge of a cliff. Her mother called often. Stay calm, she would say. Don't create problems that don't exist yet. But the problem already existed. It was growing inside her, not a child but a secret. One evening, Daniel brought home a small pair of baby socks he had seen at a store. He placed them on the table with a shy smile. Just motivation, he said playfully. Maya stared at the tiny socks. Her vision blurred with tears she refused to let fall. In that moment she realized something painful. The lie was no longer just silence. It was deception. She was allowing him to build dreams on information that wasn't complete. And every time she chose not to speak, the truth became heavier, harder, more dangerous. One night, as she lay awake beside him, she watched him sleep peacefully. His breathing was steady, his face calm. He trusted her completely. That trust felt like a mirror reflecting her dishonesty. She turned away and stared at the dark ceiling. A line had been crossed. And with each passing day, that line faded further behind her. She had chosen fear over honesty. And she didn't know how to go back. At first, nothing seemed different. The house still echoed with soft music in the mornings. Daniel still kissed her forehead before leaving for work. They still laughed over small jokes and shared quiet dinners together. On the outside, their marriage looked the same. But inside Maya, something had shifted. The lie lived with her now. It followed her into every room. It sat beside her at the dinner table. It lay between them at night in the dark. Every time Daniel mentioned children, her heart tightened. He started tracking dates, researching healthy foods, and planning doctor visits, just to prepare. He was hopeful. Excited. Maya became quiet. She smiled when she had to. Nodded when expected. But inside, guilt gnawed at her. Sleep became difficult. She would lie awake long after Daniel drifted off, staring at the ceiling, replaying the doctor's words in her mind. Sometimes she imagined telling him. She imagined him holding her and saying they would face it together. Other nights, she imagined something worse, him stepping back, disappointed, distant. Fear always won. Daniel began noticing small changes. She avoided eye contact during serious conversations. She brushed off his questions quickly. She seemed distracted. "Are you sure you're okay?" he asked one evening while they washed dishes together. "Yes," she replied too fast. He studied her face, concerned, but said nothing more. Daniel trusted her. That was the problem. His trust made her dishonesty feel heavier. Her mother, on the other hand, felt certain they had done the right thing. "You're overthinking," her mother said during one phone call. "Enjoy your marriage. Don't ruin it with worry." "But I feel like I'm lying every day," Maya admitted softly. "You're protecting your future," her mother corrected. "That's different." Different? Maya wasn't sure anymore. As weeks passed, Daniel grew even more open about his dreams. One night he spoke from the heart. "I don't care how hard life gets," he said while sitting beside her on the couch. "As long as we're honest with each other, we can survive anything." The word struck her deeply. She forced a smile, but inside she felt like she was drowning. Honesty. The one thing he valued most. And the one thing she was withholding. Their physical closeness began to change too. Not dramatically at first. Just small shifts. She pulled away slightly when he tried to hold her longer. She became tense during moments that once felt natural. Daniel noticed. He didn't accuse her. He didn't shout. But confusion slowly replaced certainty in his eyes. Maya started resenting the constant pressure from her mother. Every time her phone rang and her mother's name appeared, her chest tightened. "You're quiet lately," her mother observed one afternoon. "I feel guilty," Maya admitted. Her mother sighed. Guilt fades. Divorce doesn't. That sentence unsettled her. Was that what her mother truly believed? That honesty would automatically lead to abandonment? Maya began to see something she hadn't before. Her mother wasn't just protecting her. She was protecting herself, from reliving her own past. And without meaning to, she was shaping Maya's future with her fear. Meanwhile, the lie continued to grow. Daniel suggested they schedule fertility tests together, just to make sure everything is healthy. Panic shot through Maya. She quickly suggested waiting a little longer. Maybe they should relax first. Not rush things. Daniel agreed, but this time there was hesitation in his voice. Doubt had quietly entered their home. The small savings she had kept separate, another lie, also weighed on her. Daniel once mentioned updating their financial plans, and she changed the subject quickly. Layer upon layer. Silence upon silence. The house that once felt warm now felt tense. Maya began feeling trapped inside a story she had created. The longer she waited, the harder it became to tell the truth. If she confessed now, it would not only be about the diagnosis. It would be about years of silence. Years of watching him dream without correcting him. Years of pretending. One evening, as she stood alone in their bedroom, she looked at their wedding photo again. They looked so young. So certain. She touched the frame gently. "When did I become this person?" she whispered to herself. The lie had not exploded. It had not caused a dramatic fight. Instead, it was doing something slower. More dangerous. It was quietly eroding trust, like water wearing down stone. And neither of them fully realized how close they were to the breaking point. The beginning of the end did not come with shouting. It came with paper. One quiet Saturday afternoon, Daniel was searching for an old insurance file in Maya's desk drawer. He wasn't suspicious. He was simply organizing documents for tax season. That was when he found it. A folded hospital envelope. He almost put it back. But something about the date caught his attention. It was from years ago, around the time Maya had told him her appointment was nothing serious. His stomach tightened. He opened it slowly. The medical report inside was clear. Clinical. It explained the condition. It mentioned fertility challenges. It outlined possible treatments. And at the bottom, in bold letters, it stated that the diagnosis had been discussed in detail with the patient. Discussed. Years ago. Daniel sat down heavily in the chair. His mind began racing. Why hadn't she told him? He tried to calm himself. Maybe she forgot. Maybe it wasn't final. Maybe there was an explanation. He waited until evening. When Maya walked into the living room, she immediately sensed something was wrong. Daniel was sitting on the couch, the folded paper in his hands. His face wasn't angry. It was confused. "What is this?" he asked quietly. Her heart dropped into her stomach. She recognized the envelope instantly. Panic rose in her chest. "It's nothing," she said quickly. "Just old test results." Daniel studied her carefully. Old test results about what? She felt trapped. The air in the room felt thin. "It wasn't confirmed," she added nervously. "Doctors exaggerate sometimes." He didn't raise his voice. That made it worse. "You told me everything was fine," he said. She nodded quickly. "It was fine. I mean, mostly fine." The words sounded weak even to her own ears. Daniel stood up slowly. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked again. She looked down at the floor. The truth was right there, pushing against her chest. "Say it," she told herself. But fear tightened its grip. "I didn't want to worry you," she replied. It wasn't a complete lie. But it wasn't the whole truth either. Daniel walked toward the window, running a hand through his hair. "This isn't about worry," he said. "This is about trust." His voice cracked slightly. That crack scared her more than shouting ever could. She stepped closer. "I was going to tell you." "When?" he asked without turning around. "After how many years?" She had no answer. Silence filled the space between them. That night, her mother called again as if she sensed the tension. Maya told her everything in a trembling voice. "He found the report," she said. "He's asking questions." Her mother's response was immediate. "Stay calm. Don't admit everything. Tell him you were confused. Tell him the doctor wasn't sure." "But he saw it," Maya whispered. "It says it was discussed." "Then say you didn't understand," her mother insisted. "Don't destroy your marriage by over-explaining." Maya closed her eyes. Over-explaining. Was telling the truth now considered over-explaining? Back in the living room, Daniel sat alone. He replayed every conversation about children. Every hopeful smile. Every plan. A small seed of doubt began growing inside him. Not just about the diagnosis, but about what else he might not know. The next day he began quietly looking through more documents. Bank statements. Savings records. And that's when he noticed something else. The numbers didn't match what he remembered. There was money missing from the joint account, not stolen but never transferred in the first place. The pattern was clear. The secrecy wasn't new. When he confronted her again, his voice was no longer confused. It was hurt. "You've been keeping things from me for years," he said. She tried to explain. She tried to soften it. She tried to blame fear. But each explanation sounded like another excuse. Her guilt became unbearable. That night, she stood in the bedroom doorway watching him sit alone on the bed. She wanted to confess everything, the pressure, the fear, her mother's influence. The words were ready. "I need to tell you something," she began softly. He looked up at her, eyes tired but hopeful. And then her phone rang. Her mother. The sound broke the moment. Daniel's expression shifted. Not angry, but resigned. The truth was hovering in the air, close enough to touch. And both of them knew that once it landed, nothing would ever be the same. The storm did not arrive with thunder. It arrived with certainty. 2 days after finding the first report, Daniel went back to the hospital alone. He told himself he only wanted clarity. Maybe there had been a mistake. Maybe the condition had improved. Maybe Maya had misunderstood. But the doctor confirmed everything. The diagnosis was real. It had been explained clearly. Options had been discussed. There had been follow-up appointments scheduled. Appointments Maya never attended. Daniel walked out of the hospital feeling like the ground beneath him was no longer steady. This wasn't confusion. This wasn't miscommunication. This was a choice. That evening he came home holding a new copy of the medical file. Maya saw his face and knew immediately. There was no more room to hide. No more space for half-truths. He placed the papers on the table between them. He didn't shout. He didn't slam anything. That made it worse. His silence was heavy with disbelief. Shock came first. She saw it in his eyes, the way they searched her face as if hoping she would deny it and make it all disappear. Then disbelief. As if his mind refused to accept that the woman he trusted most could keep something this big from him. Then anger. Not loud anger. Not violent. But deep, wounded anger. The kind that comes from betrayal. His hands trembled slightly as he held the papers. He looked at her the way someone looks at a broken mirror, trying to understand which reflection is real. "How long?" he finally asked. Her voice barely worked. "Since the first appointment." "Years." The word hung between them like smoke. Years of conversations about children. Years of plans. Years of hope. And all of it built on silence. Tears streamed down Maya's face. "I was scared," she whispered. But the explanation felt small compared to the damage. He stepped back as if her words physically hurt him. "You let me dream," he said quietly. "You let me plan. You let me believe." Each sentence felt heavier than the last. She nodded through her tears. "My mother told me not to say anything. She said you would leave." The moment those words left her mouth, she knew they would only make things worse. His expression changed again. Now there was something deeper. Not just betrayal. Humiliation. "So your mother knew," he said slowly. She couldn't answer. He ran a hand over his face trying to process it all. He felt betrayed twice. By the woman he loved. And by the invisible presence that had been influencing their marriage from the outside. He thought about every time he praised her honesty. Every time he said truth mattered more than comfort. Had she felt guilt then? Had she been pretending? He looked around the house, at the furniture they chose together, the wedding photo on the wall, the future they had carefully built. And suddenly, everything felt uncertain. "If you could lie about this," he said softly, "what else don't I know?" That question cut deeper than any accusation. Maya shook her head desperately. "Nothing else. I swear." But trust, once cracked, does not repair itself with promises. His anger slowly dissolved into something more painful. Heartbreak. His shoulders dropped slightly as if carrying a weight too heavy to hold anymore. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't insulting her. He was grieving. Grieving the version of his marriage he thought was real. Grieving the children he had imagined. Grieving the honesty he believed they shared. Maya reached for him, but he stepped back. Not in cruelty. In self-protection. "I needed you to trust me," he said. "Even if the truth was hard." She sobbed openly now. "I thought I was protecting us." "You were protecting yourself," he replied. The truth of that statement echoed painfully in the room. He walked into the bedroom without another word. Minutes later, the sound of drawers opening and clothes being pulled out filled the house. Maya followed him, her legs weak. He packed slowly this time. Not angrily. Not rushed. Just decisively. Every folded shirt felt like a final sentence. Every zipped pocket sounded like closure. When he finished, he looked around the room one last time. This space had once held laughter. Now it held silence. He picked up the suitcase. Maya stood in the doorway, tears blurring her vision. "Please?" she whispered. He paused. For a brief second, love and pain fought inside his eyes. But pain won. Without another word, he walked past her. The front door opened. Cold air entered the house. And then it closed. The silence afterward was unbearable. No footsteps. No voice. No presence. Just emptiness. Maya stood alone in the middle of the living room, surrounded by memories that now felt fragile. The truth had finally come out. But instead of freeing them, it had shattered everything. The house no longer felt like a home. It felt like a reminder. Every corner held memories. Daniel's laughter in the kitchen, his shoes by the door, the couch where they once sat planning their future. Now everything was still. Too still. Maya moved through the rooms like a stranger. She barely slept. Food lost its taste. The silence pressed against her chest day and night. 3 days passed before she gathered the courage to visit her mother. Her mother opened the door with concern in her eyes. "Has he calmed down?" she asked immediately. That question alone made something shift inside Maya. Calmed down. As if Daniel's heartbreak was just anger that needed time to fade. "He left," Maya said quietly. Her mother stiffened. "He'll come back. Men always do once they think clearly." Maya shook her head slowly. "You don't understand. This wasn't just anger." They sat across from each other at the small dining table where Maya had grown up. For the first time in years, Maya didn't feel like a daughter seeking guidance. She felt like a woman facing the consequences of her own choices. "You told me not to tell him," Maya said, her voice steady but heavy. "You said I was protecting my marriage." "I was protecting you," her mother replied quickly. "I didn't want you abandoned the way I was." "But I wasn't you," Maya said softly. The words hung in the air. Her mother's face tightened, hurt flashing across it. "I gave up everything so you could have stability," she said. "I know how the world works. And I lost my husband because I was too afraid to trust him," Maya answered. Tears filled her eyes again, but this time they weren't only from sadness. They were from clarity. "I chose fear," she continued, "not love." Her mother opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. For the first time there was no advice. No warnings. Just silence. Back at the empty house, the loneliness grew deeper each night. Daniel had moved into a small apartment across town. He kept his phone on silent most days. He ignored calls from mutual friends. At work he focused on tasks just to avoid thinking. But he couldn't escape the memories. He replayed every conversation about children. Every hopeful plan. Every time he said honesty mattered. He wondered if any of it had been real to her. The betrayal didn't just hurt his heart. It shook his sense of reality. Meanwhile, Maya sat alone with her regret. She began to understand something painful. Her mother hadn't forced her. She had listened. She had agreed. She had chosen silence again and again. Obedience had felt easier than courage. And now she was paying the price. One evening, she stood in front of the mirror and barely recognized herself. "I was so afraid of losing him," she whispered, "that I lost him anyway." The truth felt heavy but clear. Love cannot survive where truth is buried. You cannot build a future on hidden foundations and expect it to stand forever. For the first time, Maya stopped blaming her mother. She stopped blaming fear. She faced herself. And in that quiet moment, she realized something else. If she wanted even a small chance at healing, she would have to stand on her own. Without fear. Without excuses. Without hiding. The question now wasn't whether Daniel would forgive her. The question was whether she was brave enough to finally live in the truth. Maya sat at the small desk in her empty house, staring at a blank sheet of paper. The pen in her hand felt heavy, as if it carried the weight of all the years she had hidden the truth. She thought of Daniel, the man who had trusted her completely, who had dreamed with her, who had loved her openly. She thought of how quickly that love had crumbled under the weight of fear and obedience. Her mother's words echoed faintly in her mind, but this time they felt distant, irrelevant. This was no longer about protection. This was about accountability. With a deep breath, Maya began to write. She wrote everything: the diagnosis, the pressure from her mother, the lies she told to avoid conflict. She didn't try to soften it. She didn't shift blame. She wrote from her heart, owning every choice she had made. When she finished, tears blurred the words, but she folded the letter carefully. She knew Daniel might never forgive her. She knew the damage was deep. But for the first time in months she felt a small flicker of freedom. She had spoken the truth even if it hurt. The next evening she called Daniel. Her voice trembled as she asked if he could meet her at a quiet park they had once loved. He agreed, silently, his voice carrying the weight of months of heartbreak. They sat on a bench beneath a large oak tree. The same tree where Daniel had once held her hand and promised honesty above all else. Maya handed him the letter without a word. Daniel opened it slowly. He read. His face shifted from confusion to anger to sorrow. Tears streamed down both of their faces. His from heartbreak, hers from the relief of finally being honest. He didn't hug her immediately. He didn't speak. Instead, he just sat with her, letting the emotions wash over them together. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Daniel spoke. "I don't know if I can ever forget this," he said quietly. "But I can see that you're finally being honest. That matters." Maya nodded. "I will do whatever it takes to rebuild your trust. I will never let fear guide me again." He looked at her, eyes still heavy with doubt but softening. "Then maybe we can try. Slowly. Carefully. But it will take time." Maya smiled through her tears, a fragile, tentative smile. She knew the road ahead would be long, but at least now, it was a road paved with truth. Later she confronted her mother again. This time she was firm. "I will no longer let fear dictate my choices. You cannot control my marriage. You cannot control my life." Her mother's face fell, the weight of her own regrets finally visible. "I only wanted to protect you," she said softly. "And I only wanted to live honestly," Maya replied. "Protection without honesty only destroys love." Maya had learned the hardest lesson of her life. Fear may feel safe, but it cannot replace courage. Lies may feel protective, but they suffocate the heart. For the first time in months, she felt a small hope stirring. A hope that love could survive when truth was finally embraced. Love is fragile. It thrives on trust, honesty, and courage. Maya's story reminds us that protecting someone with lies, even with the best intentions, often destroys what we are trying to save. Fear may push us to hide the truth, but hiding it only builds walls between hearts. Generational trauma, parental influence, or past pain can shape our choices, but the consequences of disobedience to truth are ours to bear. Real protection is not silence. Real protection is honesty even when it is painful. In the end, love demands courage. The courage to be vulnerable. The courage to face fear. The courage to choose truth over comfort. And sometimes the hardest choice, telling the truth, becomes the only path to healing, redemption, and hope.